If you've ever thought about joining the military, there is a mind-boggling range of options to choose from. Luckily, there are experts in every branch that can help you explore these options and make the best choices for you. Join us today as we bring on the recruiters. Thanks for tuning in to Veterans Voices. I'm your host, Joshua Zebley, and my co-host is Elena Kim. Today is a very special Veterans Voices show. We are hosting recruiters from each of the United States Armed Forces. We have representation from the Army, the Navy, Air Force, Space Force, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard. If you want to be part of the conversation or you have any questions, just use the QR code on your screen to join us in Zoom webinar. We would love for you to be part of the show. You will get a chance to hear from each of our recruiters, and we are starting with the Army. Let's take a look at a recent Army recruiting video.
The soldier's creed.
The soldier's creed.
I am an American soldier. I am a warrior and a member of a team. I serve the people of the United States and live the Army values.
I will always place the mission first. I will never accept defeat.
Delivery.
I will never leave a fallen comrade.
I am disciplined, physically and mentally tough, trained and proficient in my warrior tasks and drills.
Someday you'll be just like me.
I'm an expert and I'm a professional. I'm a guardian of freedom and the American way of life. I am an American soldier.
Our first conversation today will be with Sergeant First Class Jason Dahl. Welcome to Veterans Voices.
Thank you for having me, Josh.
Sergeant Dahl, can you tell us why did you decide to join the Army?
I decided to join the Army back in 2003 after 9/11. I'm from New York, so that had a lasting impact on what happened, and I knew I needed more out of myself. My family served in every branch of the service, so I just tried to find which one worked for me with what I had going on, and that's where I went. I've been in multiple different countries all over both seaboards of the United States. I've started out as a fuel supply specialist, later became a truck driver, became a lab tech, went to drill sergeant school, then became an instructor, and eventually I was like, I need a new challenge. I've been on task forces for mobilizing and demobilizing soldiers, airmen, Marines, Navy personnel, trained over 100,000 people over 10 years, and said, hey, my next challenge has got to be recruiting, because that's what builds the rest of the force. So,
Well, thank you for joining us today. Definitely thank you for your service.
How old were you when you first joined?
I was 22 years old, Elena.
And how long have you been in the Army?
I've been in the Army for 21 years.
And we're talking today about recruiters, and our focus is really for those young people out there that might be thinking about joining. Can you tell me a little bit in terms of just the Army, what are the advantages that you see in joining the Army?
The advantages to joining the Army are there's all the opportunities you can think. We make up 50% of the Department of Defense. I've got air, I've got sea, I've got land, I've got all the capabilities. There's a big cyber warfare group here in the Bay Area. There's a lot of medical reserve jobs, military police, logistics, anything that happens anywhere in the world, we've got something to do with it.
So I'm going to go back to something you said when you were telling us why you joined the Army. Just last month, we did a show on 9/11 veterans, and we had the majority of those veterans joined after 9/11. A couple were in and out, but we found definitely on that part of the United States that men and women both felt like it was their duty to join the military after 9/11. So, yeah, I mean, you have thousands of fellow service members and veterans that said, I'm going to do this on that day. And that should make us all proud, and definitely makes me proud that people are, accepting this as their responsibility to join the United States military in whatever branch it happens to be out of all we're going to talk to today. You chose the Army, and then you continued for, you said 21 years about?
Yes, sir.
And then, so recruiting, that's completely different than anything you ever did, right? You have to go now sell the Army. Well, how was the training for recruiting duty, and what did you think, like, okay, I used to be a lab tech, I mean, that's nothing to do with recruiting, but how did you learn to do that?
I have an outgoing personality. I like to talk to people. I also, after becoming a drill sergeant, I learned that I liked teaching people. So I get to use both of those qualities where I get to interact and have some sort of lasting impression on the area that I find myself. Like, I've been here in the Bay for 5 years. It's been incredible for myself and my family. And I've been able to impact a large part of the population, and that means something.
That's great, because the recruiters, they need folks like you that experience, 20 years. No offense to the rest of you all, but I don't think anyone has the experience of Sergeant Dahl, but you can share it with us and with anyone that wants to join the Army. That's great. So the advantages you said, go ahead, Elena, I'm sorry.
Just to your point, Josh, it sounds like Sergeant Dahl, you've held so many different positions in the Army, so you've probably, when you're talking to young folks and trying to explain to them sort of the advantages of joining the Army, it sounds like you're really able to speak from experience. I know personally when I joined the Army, one of the things that stood out to me, and I don't know, you tell me if this is still the case, is that it's one of the only branches that actually lets you choose your specific job as opposed to choosing a field of work. Is that still the case, and can you speak to that?
It is still the case. Everyone, before they even go down to MEPS and sign their contract based off of their ASVAB score, they pick what job they're qualified for based off of those tests.
And I'm gonna pause you just for a second there. So what's MEPS and what's an ASVAB score?
It's the military entrance processing station, and your ASVAB score it's like the SATs for vocational purposes. We find out what you have the propensity to learn quickly, because I don't have 4 years to teach you a job. I have 4 to 6 months, and you're going right into on-the-job training.
So you were saying even prior to going to MEPS, you're able to choose your job. Is that right?
Yes. So you sit down, you take the test, and then once you're qualified to go through the rest of the physical and everything else, then you sit down and based off of your test scores, we find out what you're able to learn quickly, and you pretty much get to know the ins and outs and where some of the places you'll go to begin with and some of the programs you're eligible for before you even leave the office that day.
Thank you.
Interesting. The Army's always been, I didn't realize that there was 50% of the Department of Defense. Is that what you said? So you're going to have more choices for where you're going to be stationed at, right? Is that an option that potential recruits, potential soldiers can do? Can they say, I would like to go to Germany?
There are some MOSs that they have a higher need for in certain places. So if that's something that you're interested in, that's a possibility. It's not every single job, but it's a lot of them where you get to pick your first duty location or, certain other programs like that.
And MOS is military?
Military occupational specialty.
So your job, and I know most branches use MOS as a term, so we'll be saying MOS a lot tonight, so I'm going to put that out for everybody watching. MOS is your job. Air Force when we get to you, and Navy, I believe, or Coast Guard, you use a different term for it, but it's essentially what your job is. So thank you so much for joining us today, Sergeant Dahl. We look forward to speaking with you again in about 25 minutes or so.
Thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm. Now we want to move on and talk a little bit about the Navy. Let's look at a Navy video.
I said I'd never join.
Thought living on sub would be too hard.
I figured only the weatherman track storms.
I said my job wouldn't matter.
Never knew how strong I was. I never thought this would be my commute.
down. Or be the one who stops an attack. Joining the Navy sounds crazy. Saying never actually is.
We are talking with recruiters today. If you want to be part of the conversation or you have any questions, just use the QR code on your screen to join us Zoom webinar. We would love for you to be part of the show. Now, here to talk about the Navy is Chief Delez. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you, Josh.
Chief, can you tell us a little about why you joined the Navy?
The biggest reason I joined the Navy was for my family. First and foremost, it was my daughter. So I was going to school, and it kind of like hit me with a lot of fees and all that with the education piece. So I really needed something to kind of like get me along the way. And my daughter was like the pushing force that kind of like made me make that decision, just because I knew I needed to get the job experience already, start working. And since she was born, that was the biggest driving force I had.
Okay, Chief, hold on. Let's go a little deeper. You told me why you joined the military. Why did you join the Navy?
The Navy, it actually started because I started the ROTC in school, back in high school, and it was a Navy ROTC, and I had family members that was also in the Navy, so that kind of like gave me the way.
So you had some in-house recruiters, that's what it sounds like.
I guess you could say that. In-house experience and kind of like knowledge-wise and knowing something that I really know.
All right, all right. There's some photos of you on the screen there too, Chief.
Yeah, that one right there's from the COVID. We had to do it was a funeral that we had to attend to for one of our sailors, so one of our recruits. So once they go through our process, they remain part of our family. So we always like, when we have things going on, we always take pride in that, make sure that we'll be there for them.
Of course, of course.
A couple of things I just wanted to point out from that video that stood out to me. So when we saw the Army video, it's really drawing on, the emotion, right? It's like really sentimental, it's really touching, and it's showing folks when they're sort of back home helping, and if you want to continue to be a helper, then they show you kind of in uniform. The Navy's always, I swear, there's like more money that they put in their PR budget, because the Navy video comes in and it's very focused on like modern, and it's got this like electronic music in the background. It's like very cutting edge, and it's showing specifically the jobs, right? And all of the really new and exciting jobs. So Chief, can you tell us a little bit about some of those exciting jobs that are available to folks who join the Navy that maybe aren't available in some of the other branches?
One of the jobs I would say is the Navy SEAL. So each branch should have their own type of special forces, but for us, I think one of our top-notch jobs is Navy SEALs and the nuclear engineering field as well. A lot of branches, they don't have a nuclear field like what we do. So, I mean, I think those are the biggest thing, high-tech technology. I mean, I think Air Force probably one of the competitive when it comes to the tech piece, but for like battle force and all that, I think Marines and the Army.
Chief, I've never heard of this Navy SEAL thing, so you might have to, I know Special Forces, something like that, right? They make a couple movies about it. I've heard of it. Just kidding. So how long were you in before you decided to be a recruiter, and why did you decide that?
It took me 5 years to realize that, I wanna be able to teach and kind of give my my point of view of how being in the military would be, and being a nursing student kind of like put in more pressure, and like I want to be able to serve and help out other people. So that's like one of the biggest pieces that I believe that kind of got me where I want to be at.
And what kind of jobs did you have in the Navy before you became a recruiter?
So I mean, before the Navy, I was a nursing student, so I was a full-time student trying to get my nursing degree, and then after that,
while you were in the Navy, prior to being a recruiter, were you a corpsman or?
No. So I mean, story is, while in the Navy, I was an engineman. So it has nothing to do with any medical field. But at the same time, my recruiter kind of gave me a good pitch to have two things going on versus having one thing. So it actually kind of worked out, because now I have more options when I get out of the Navy.
That's what we're all about. I mean, Elena and I both work in the veteran, atmosphere, and it's about, having those options when you get out. So, especially it sounds like you and Sergeant Dahl both when you get out, you have an experience, and it's not just, one thing that you did. And whether you guys know it or not, your experience as recruiters is going to help you tremendously in the civilian world. So I really appreciate that that you're here, Chief. The Navy is one of those branches where now, do people need to swim? I feel like people say that, like, I don't know how to swim, I can't join the Navy. I'm like, well, I don't know if you actually need to know how to swim.
That's actually a good question. Once you see in boot camp, a lot of people can't swim. So what they do is they teach you in a little pool. That way you'll be able to swim and be able to help yourself survive.
Those ships that... Go ahead, Elena.
Gosh, when I was joining the Army, I remember very distinctly my Army recruiter saying, oh, you don't want to join the Navy because you don't know how to swim, and you can't join the Navy if you don't know how to swim. So now I know, Chief, that I wasn't being told the exact truth there. Sounds like you can still join.
Absolutely.
How about the opportunities for potential sailors joining the Navy? Where can they ask where they can be stationed? Can they say, please, here's my first choice? Or is it kind of, this is the military, we're going to put you where we put you?
Absolutely. I mean, you're going to have your options where you want to be stationed, but just like same as the other branches, it depends on how much is the manning in that local area. So if they're already full, they can't put you in there, but you're going to have multiple options that you're going to be choosing from.
Something great about the Navy that I find, and I know Staff Sergeant will too, is you, as a corpsman, which is a Navy kind of like in the medical field, right? Yep. You can be attached to Marines, and I think it's a very special thing for Marines and Navy, that bond that's been around for over 100 years or probably even longer. So I think some folks that want to join the Navy, they get the opportunities to work with other branches that maybe other branches don't get as much as the Navy and Marines, because I know this will come up. The Marines is the Department of the Navy. We all have heard that, but I don't think people really realize that. So that's a great perspective where I'm going to go where Marines are going to go. So thank you very much for joining us today, and look forward to talking to you again in a few minutes.
Glad to be here.
Thank you, Chief Delas. Our next recruiter is representing the Air Force and the relatively new Space Force. Let's watch videos for both of those branches.
Now more of the
Is this it?
This is it!
You know, space is hard. It used to be all we had to worry about was astrophysics, Kepler's law, gamma rays, solar flares, rocket science, black holes, and the theory of relativity. But now we also track about 30,000 objects, orbiting at over 17,500 miles an hour. And our entire way of life depends on us to protect our satellites from attack day and night. So yeah, space is hard.
Now we want to meet Staff Sergeant Connor Nicholas. He's a recruiter from the Air Force as well as the Space Force. Welcome to Veterans Voices, Staff Sergeant.
Thank you, Josh.
Can you tell us a little bit about why you joined the Air Force?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So, 23-year-old coming out of San Diego, I ultimately needed direction, and the Air Force was able to go ahead and provide that. I had a little bit of influence. My uncle did 20 years in the Air Force and had similar stories. Junior college wasn't working too much for me, and it was getting hard and expensive to even transfer. And so he had faced a similar situation when he was 24, and he did 20 years in the Air Force. He had gotten his 2 associate's degrees while he was in, associate's degree, a bachelor's, and 2 masters while he was in. He did 20 years, got a pension for being in for 20 years, and then when he got out, transferred his GI Bill, where he's able to go ahead and he could have went to school and continued if he wanted to, but he transferred that over to one of his sons who's about to graduate college himself right now. So I wanted to follow suit and have that success.
That's awesome. You sounds a lot like Chief. You had some influence from the family, right? And someone's footsteps to follow in. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today.
And Staff Sergeant Nicholas, tell us a little bit about your Air Force career and how that led you to becoming a recruiter.
Absolutely. Great question. So my Air Force career, I've been in about 9 years, and so I've had the luxury of being able to travel for about 18 different countries. These are some pictures of me being able to kind of fly. My previous job was what's called a C5 loadmaster. And so that's me being able to marshal equipment right outside of the aircraft of the C5 and being able to fly and supervising that onloading and offloading of cargo, being able to be a part of humanitarian missions and being able to be a part of something bigger and greater than myself and transporting all sorts of cargo and stuff all over to different parts of the world has been such an influence and an experience that I don't believe much people are able to gain outside of, a military branch. And so I had that luxury of being able to go ahead and do so, and that opportunity to now that I can go ahead and bring that into, the real world and explain, how things kind of work and go through those kind of things, emotions like that.
So you did this for 9 years, you said? You've been in for 9 years, and then you decided, I want to be a recruiter. Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely.
Why you decided to do that. It's a lot different than loading a plane, right? I think all of you have done something that's it's not exactly public speaking or going out. So how did you make that decision?
Yeah, so I had a lot of opportunity, and to kind of add on to that, I did that flying gig and was a load master for, did about 7 to 8 years. For a year, I worked under the base commander and was able to work as a protocol specialist and have an opportunity doing that and talking to high-ranking officers and being able to, set up scripts and stuff like that for events. And after that, I had an opportunity for recruiting. And so with recruiting, I wanted to expand my horizon and just like Chief, create more opportunities for myself outside my career field. And so that's where recruiting came in. They said, would you like to do this? And I said, absolutely.
That sounds like a good way to go. A new challenge, right? That's why we all joined the military, right? Because it was something different, something hopefully difficult, but not too difficult, right? You can work your way up to being something, seemed to me, very difficult, being a recruiter, because you're asking, people to sign 4 years, 6 years, 3 years to their life, and you got to convince their parents, which is probably one of the harder things to do, right? Or maybe if they're a little bit older and have a spouse. So very rough job, and I commend all of you for doing it.
Thank you, sir.
And Josh, I'm really noticing a theme here, which is that it's almost not as important what job you join the specific branch for, because I'm hearing from all of our guests tonight that you will have the opportunity to sort of explore other skills and learn new knowledge in different fields if you continue on in that branch. So I think that's really exciting, especially for someone who's considering joining. They might be sort of anxious about, well, I don't know if I'm choosing the right job, and there's a lot of pressure here. So I would sort of venture to guess that all of our guests tonight would give that advice to a new recruit. So with that in mind, Staff Sergeant Nicholas, can you tell me, aside from the jobs, a little bit of what you see are the advantages of either joining the Air Force or the Space Force?
Absolutely. I think that the advantages that you're able to get is you're able to go ahead and be secure. You're going to get your health care, your benefits like that, and that goes with all the other branches as well. But the biggest things that you're able to get is, for us, we're at college, whether you're in the Space Force or the Air Force, we're an actual college as a branch, right? So going in, when you're going through basic training and you're going through your technical training, learning your job, you're able to go ahead and apply and gain college credits towards a degree, in which it's something that I actually have with me today that's sitting on my desk, is an associate's degree through the Community College of the Air Force that I was able to go ahead and obtain by learning my job. So that's something that's very unique to our branches, is that while you're in, though I see a lot of people wanting to continue and go to community college, you're still doing the very much same thing while you're in, which allows you to go ahead and be more marketable when you're coming out.
I love that. Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. I think the question is, for a lot of our viewers probably, is there's the Air Force and there's the Space Force.
Right.
So can you tell us the difference, and maybe just some highlights of what the Space Force is?
Absolutely. Space Force is an amazing branch. And so what we're able to highlight there is we do a lot more of our cyber and intel type jobs, right? And, I know for me, I had to Google my way in and use, Apple Maps, but that's something we're able to monitor, utilize our satellites. And that's what the Space Force is really, entailing is, we're protecting the skies in that realm, or in a sense, protecting space.
I think their motto is Guardians or something like that, right? The Guardians of the Space or
I
something?
wouldn't say Guardians of the Galaxy. That's
Guardians
a
of the
different
Galaxy.
thing.
No, I
but-
don't want to get
but-
trademarked by anybody I don't want them calling on us. But the Space Force is interesting. I remember driving down to the coast and I see at Vandenberg Space Force something. I'm like, Space Force, what's going on here? Are folks coming into your office and say, I want to be in the Space Force as a job that is not typically a Space Force job, or Space Force is very typical in you're going to be in pilot, you're going to be in mechanics, you're not going to be a mechanic on a Jeep in the Space Force.
Right. It's highlights just cybersecurity and intelligence and pretty much protecting anything cyber. And so, and working with our satellites. So it's a huge thing. We'll work with NASA as well to, once we have our satellites in the air, right, we'll monitor those as well. But no piloting the rockets or anything like that.
Very high tech. Thank you for joining us. Elena, did you have a question?
Yeah, so I mean, just going back to the videos, right? The things that are standing out to me in the Air Force video, it was like very straightforward. It's about purpose, right? You're lacking purpose in your civilian life. Come join the Air Force. We got it for you. The Space Force video was so interesting because the vibe that I was getting from it was like, proud nerd, right? Like it was like using all these like really scientific terms and everything. So my question is like, what type of young people are coming to you and saying, I want to join the Space Force? Like, do they trend with a particular background, or are there any specific traits that you're noticing there?
Yes, ma'am. So mostly what I get is a lot of those who are looking to go into like maybe the tech field when they get out or something like that, because that is kind of our next future coming in anyway. So, and on top of that, being able to have an associate's degree in something in that tech field, right, with that cyber defense and cybersecurity, that is pretty much our next level stuff. So that's the biggest thing.
Thank you, Staff Sergeant Connor. Our next branch is one that is pretty close to me. Let's take a look at a video for the Marines.
The future is threatened by enemies often unrelenting,
Marines, get these people out of here.
It's gonna be all right.
unexpected, and unpredictable.
Stay alert, Marines.
In the midst of an uncertain and evolving world, the need for Marines to defeat these shifting threats is critical.
Enemy drone down.
Because the need to ensure stability for our nation has never been greater.
Sending coordinates now.
When there are battles to win for America's future, there is one constant: Marines.
We're talking with recruiters today. If you want to be part of the conversation or you have any questions, just use the QR code on your screen to join us in Zoom webinar. We would love for you to be part of the show. Now let's give a special welcome to Staff Sergeant Sales. I have been looking forward to talking about the Marines with you, Staff Sergeant.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about why you joined the Marines?
Yes. So to keep a long answer as short as I can, being a young man growing up fairly locally, I was born in Vallejo, raised in Fairfield, right here across the bridge. I knew that certain things I wanted to make sure happened in my life. Big thing was making sure my mom, my sister, and myself was proud of the man that I became, to become a family man. And going through, speaking to different options and career paths, speaking to the Marine recruiter specifically, helped me kind of identify I have a desire to achieve or change something, and I didn't know where to implement it to make sure I was ultimately fulfilled with my success. Speaking with him, he showed me the different career paths and how I can take advantage of the Marine Corps, and that specifically led me to why I joined the Marine Corps.
Thank you for joining us, Staff Sergeant.
Thank you, sir.
And Staff Sergeant Sales, tell us a little bit about after you joined the Marine Corps, what did you do and how did that lead to becoming a recruiter?
Okay. So joining into the Marine Corps, I entered as a 1833 amphibious assault vehicle crewman. That was my MOS, my military occupational specialty. So I basically drove these giant tanks, just like you see on that picture right there. It's AAV. They go in the water. We splash from ship to shore with our, Department of the Navy. We go off their ships and our own ships as well, transfer troops and goods to shore. Also support the infantry with fire and maneuver and communication. So with that, I had the opportunity to travel all the world, just like those pictures right there. The one on the left is in Saudi Arabia. The one on the right is in Australia. I got to see the world. I got to go and drive and blow things up, but also meet foreign countries and make a lot of good friends all around the world. As long as, just like that picture right there on the far right, that's me and my wife at one of our seminars. This is for a staff sergeant. Through every rank in the Marine Corps, we go through like different seminars for leadership, for our MOS credibility, different things like that. So going through different billets as a driver, as a section leader, or a crew chief, or as acting platoon sergeants, taking charge of about 30 to up to 40, 50 different Marines and our vehicles. And then that leading to recruiting. I did recruiting before. I was here from 2019 to 2021 here in the Contra Costa area. Left for 2.5 years, went back with AAVs, which led me back here.
You must really love recruiting if you came back to it twice, right? I don't know. Career recruiter, right, Sergeant? So we'll see how the rest of y'all feel in a couple of years. But maybe take some from Staff Sergeant here. So I'm gonna do my best not to play any favorites because I love you all, but I think everyone knows I'm a Marine Corps veteran. So seeing a Marine Corps recruiter here, I haven't seen one in, it's been a while. The Marines is obviously the smallest branch, right?
Yes, sir.
And I would say everyone has a perception of what the Marines is, whether that's being first to go or being boot camp is not as fun as other branches. So what do you say to service or potential service members when they come in and they're like, well, this is what I heard about the Marines. How do I tell my mom I'm going to join the Marines?
Okay. So definitely common misconceptions come from all avenues, from influencers to I heard this, or my friend did this, or just different ways. The Marine Corps is always evolving, whether it's in combat like you saw in the videos, or how our leadership is, exiting the Marine Corps, things like that. So I say just come sit in and learn about it. You don't know what you don't know. It's nothing till it's something. We have a lot of opportunities a lot of people don't think we do. They see the videos and the movies, everything about the Marine Corps is about combat. I'm gonna go join this. A lot of families think that. But in reality, we have over 350 different career paths in the Marine Corps, and only 75% of those are non-combat related. We have the 6th largest Air Force in the entire world. We have communications, we have administrative work, we have cyber, counter intel, all the way to the job that you do see, like infantry or my job with combat support. There's a lot of things that people just don't know because they try to categorize us into something that they think it is. But there's a lot of opportunities that people have no idea about.
I appreciate you sharing that with us, Staff Sergeant Sales. So one of the things you said was that, come in and sit with it because the Marine Corps is always evolving. And I want to ask, is there a particular job that stands out to you in the Marine Corps as something that's maybe really new, maybe, or doing something new within that MOS that kind of comes to mind for you?
Okay. There's a couple that can come into mind, but very near and dear to me is my actual MOS. My job in the Marine Corps with 1833 is actually exiting the Marine Corps, and we're entering a new vehicle called the ACVs, amphibious combat vehicles. Same kind of topic of the job, but we have different missions and different things that we're going to be utilizing. There's also a lot of like counter intel. A lot of people don't know we go into intelligence or counterintelligence with our communications, or we're also evolving with our jobs like supply and administration. Some of the jobs are being molding back into each other. We have military police, firefighters. To be honest, to put one finger pinpoint on one job that's constantly evolving, it'd be almost impossible. As a Marine Corps, we're always learning, we're always growing and trying to keep up with the ages.
Staff Sergeant, to me it seems like it would be the easiest to recruit for and the hardest at the same time. You have folks that come in there and say, I want to be a Marine. You're like, cool, good to go. Here's your MOS. And some that, if they don't really want to, then maybe this is not the branch for you. You got to want to be a Marine. You can't really talk somebody into that.
Yes, sir.
Does that sound accurate?
Yes, sir. Going into Marine Corps office, speaking with the recruiter, it can go two ways. It's not for me, or it is for me. We like to kind of also to show you all the jobs opportunities, but the rigorous training we go through, and also going through MEPS like the Army recruiter spoke about, the entrancing process to the Marine Corps. Marine Corps is the only branch of service that has not lowered our standards. Because we are the smallest branch, we have to, not to go against anyone here, but we have to have a certain tier of individual joining the Marine Corps. Because we are a smaller branch, we have a lot of billets that we have to fulfill. We can't lower our ASVAB scores, we can't lower our moral or medical standards because we have a big job to fulfill with a lot of less people.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Staff Sergeant Sales. The last branch we want to discuss today is the Coast Guard. Let's watch a Coast Guard video.
In the Coast Guard, you'll expand your horizons, not limit them. Save lives. Call the shots. Take action. Catch drug smugglers. Rescue injured animals. Stop human trafficking. In the Coast Guard, your career is in your hands. Become a chef, a highly skilled mechanic, operate boats, pilot planes, learn to lead. In the Coast Guard, you are a part of the bigger picture. Help others, protect our ports, secure our waters, defend our homes. Don't limit yourself. Expand your options in the Coast Guard.
I want to welcome Petty Officer Jesse Torres to Veterans Voices. Petty Officer, you are a member of the Coast Guard, right?
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
No problem. I'm glad that you're here. Can you tell us a little bit about why you joined the Coast Guard?
Absolutely. So I'm born and raised out in Hawaii, have a strong water background my entire life. I've spent in and around the water. So having that water confidence definitely helped my decision. Other than that, I wanted a job that provided me financial stability, able to go and travel, and my desire was to help people. So putting all that into account, I knew the Coast Guard was definitely the right place for me.
Thank you for joining us today, Petty Officer.
Yeah, thank you.
And Petty Officer Torres, you mentioned you wanted to travel. I mean, that sounds super exciting. Where have you traveled to? What have you done in the Coast Guard?
Yeah, so before I joined the Coast Guard, I never actually left the Hawaiian Islands. And after completing boot camp, I was stationed on a polar class icebreaker, and I got to go up to the North Pole. So that was definitely one of the highlights of my military career. Yeah.
The Coast Guard is one of those branches I think a lot of people don't understand completely what they do. So you've had, how many jobs have you had since you've been in the Coast Guard? And there's a couple of photos on the screen there. I don't know if that's you hanging in the air there, but that's awesome if it is, or maybe you're lowering the person down.
Yeah. So yeah, on the right is the picture of me on the Coast Guard Cutter Healy, which is the polar class icebreaker. That was my first unit out of boot camp. And then after that, I went to aircraft mechanics school where I learned how to work on our Coast Guard aircraft. So my last 9 years in the Coast Guard, I've been a flight mechanic, not only working on the MH-65 helicopter, but going out and flying and doing search and rescue cases as well.
That seems really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you decide to become a recruiter for the Coast Guard?
So I had so much fun flying. I had so much fun with everything that the Coast Guard had provided to me and all the opportunities I got to do. So being able to talk upon those opportunities, it was a no-brainer that recruiting, I just get to talk about the awesome things I get to do, kind of inspire that excitement in other people, and definitely, show them that there's a lot of amazing options here today, and the Coast Guard is definitely one of them.
So the Coast Guard is stationed all throughout the world, like most other branches, right? But you act more as kind of like a port security or like a policing force. Is that accurate?
Yeah. The Coast Guard is Department of Homeland Security. All the other branches are Department of Defense. So we have a different set of missions. Most of our missions are humanitarian missions. So conducting things like search and rescue, port and waterway security, and drug interdiction are, three of the main missions that the Coast Guard has to offer. But helping people is, our specialty. Yeah.
So being comfortable in the water is important.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Elena.
No, I'm just to his point, not just people, but I saw in that video there's like even helping animals, which that really stood out to me, or at least that was one aspect of the video that stood out to me. And if you want to talk about that, but also the piece that stood out to me was becoming a pilot, because I know that most folks, when they think, I'd like to be a pilot, they're going to think Air Force or Navy first, I think would probably be the two branches that come to my mind. But you could also, obviously, Coast Guard has that option too. Can you talk about those two?
Definitely. The Coast Guard does have options to be a pilot, and the career path to become a pilot is definitely an amazing one. I myself, I'm not a pilot. In that photo, you saw the helicopter lowering the dog. I was the guy in the helicopter lowering the dog down to the boat. So although I do get to go fly with them, I'm not a pilot and I don't pilot the aircraft, but I get to join them on all their search and rescue missions, and every time they go fly, they need a flight mech to go with them.
It sounds like a super exciting job that you're able to do. I think we've seen them. I can't remember the name of the movie with Ashton Kutcher. It's
Guardian,
accurate, right?
The Guardian.
It's accurate. I know it is. I know all the movies about all the branches here. Accurate. But when I saw that one, I was like, did I go join the wrong branch? Then I saw him get in ice cold water. I was like, no, I did not join the wrong branch. So as far as the Coast Guard, there's many other jobs, right? I mean, they have to have mechanics. They have, just like any other branch, right? And is compared to we know the Marines is small compared to the other three branches. Definitely. What's the size of the Coast Guard?
So I believe right now the Coast Guard has about 45,000 active duty members. We are definitely one of the smallest branches. And kind of to piggyback your first question, we have many jobs in the Coast Guard. So not every job requires you to be able to jump out of a helicopter and pull people out of the water. We have other jobs which we call rates, such as a cook, a mechanic, cybersecurity specialist. So definitely a lot of different options when it comes to the Coast Guard.
I think one question that I would have as a veteran, right? So your Department of Homeland Security, are the benefits going to be the same for someone who joins the Coast Guard as any of the other branches, given that it's not DOD?
That's a great question. We do have all of the same benefits as the rest of the branches of the military. So when it comes to like healthcare, 30 days paid vacation, even other opportunities like VA home loans, we have all the same benefits that it comes to the Coast Guard with all the other branches.
It's interesting that it's the Department of Homeland Security, which happened after 9/11, right? That's when the government decided let's make the Coast Guard Homeland Security to protect our borders and things like that. But during times of war, they're activated and become part of DOD. Is that correct?
So in times of war, the Coast Guard will get recalled to the Navy to fight in those wars. But for as long as I have been in, 13 years, it hasn't happened. So we leave it to the professionals to do that.
You're all professionals. Thank you. Thank you, Petty Officer Torres. Now I want to bring back all of our recruiters and talk about modern recruiting in general. It's a rare opportunity to talk with all of you at once. If you want to be part of the conversation or you have any questions, just use the QR code on your screen to join us in Zoom webinar. We would love for you to be part of the show. So we have some time here to kind of talk openly about the different branches, and we really want to talk about some recruiting strategies and how everything is going right now in the recruitment world, and what possible recruits need to know before they come in, to one of your offices, how they can learn about that. So if anyone wants to tell me about modern recruiting, is there anything that I may have found surprising? So I'm gonna ask you first, because I know you've been in the longest. So you can compare modern recruiting to maybe when you joined and said in 2003?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
In 2003, I met my recruiter one day. I went to the physical the next day, and 10 days later I was in boot camp. Now that's not a possibility. We were just working a young lady yesterday that she's been in the process for a year because of multitude of reasons. And it's everyone's second choice, or, if this doesn't work out or that doesn't work out, I'll see what the military can do. But they don't understand it's so strict. Probably 80% of the population doesn't even qualify. Mm-hmm. I have people with masters that can't pass the entrance exam.
Wow. So do all your branches participate in the delayed entry program? And it might be a different word for other branches. So that's a period of time where you can use to acclimate yourself or get ready for boot camp, right? Basically what it is. I took advantage of that way back when, and I learned a lot of knowledge, and definitely had to make sure we were all in shape. But is that still something that the military is practicing in, or the Army?
Absolutely. I know for all the branches here, we all have, we call it different things, but we all have a day during the week where we get together with the people that are in our process, and there's different responsibilities based off of their part of the process.
Really interesting to me, going back to what Sergeant Dole was talking about, is that sometimes you're working with somebody for a year prior to them going off to boot camp. And what I'm hearing is that this isn't necessarily because the person, doesn't want to join immediately, but rather there are certain qualifications that they need to work on meeting, certain standards that they need to work on raising themselves to in order to even qualify to join. And that's certainly different from when I joined as well. I joined in 2005. This was the height of the Iraq War, and pretty much the floodgates were open, right? Because we needed bodies. Here we are in 2024, and it's very different. But I want to hear from really anyone on the panel, because Sergeant Dahl also mentioned that you were working with a young woman. I would say that a huge thing that has to be new is that you're now putting women into infantry billets. Can someone speak to how that might differ from years before?
So in the Marine Corps' eyes, before women weren't really entering into any combat-related MOSs, and since it's changed, I believe a couple of years ago, there's no different qualifications at all. So just like how he said, there is a policy in place for every branch to enter into, and that's something I always tell any individual: if it's something that you even have a spark of interest in, sit down with the recruiter, learn about it, and go to MEPS, the Military Entry Team Processing Station, to see if you even qualify, because you sit down and you learn about all these great experiences, or how to become an infantry as a female, or other job opportunities, and then you get all this buildup, and then a couple weeks later, you go to MEPS and you're not even qualified, whether it's a physical aspect with your medical documents, or mental aptitude. You take your Armed Service Vocational Aptitude Battery Test, the ASVAB, and you're not even qualified to get the job that you're looking for. So as long as you meet those requirements, I'm pretty sure with any branch of service here, if you meet those requirements, you can go into that job field, no matter what your religion is, no matter what you look like, no matter what your race is. So I believe that's the biggest change is as long as you meet the requirements and you have that drive and you take that action, you'll be able to fulfill what you're looking for.
So modern recruiting, when I think of modern and recruiting, I think of social media. So do you all have social media accounts through your recruit station
Yes, sir. Yes,
that
sir.
now you use, and you have to get that stuff approved by comms and all? We saw the commercials, which are amazing, but it makes me think how many people between the 16 to 23 when you joined, maybe a little bit older than the rest, are sitting in front of TV watching live TV. So that maybe isn't, but you can show those on TikTok, I think it's called. TikTok,
yes, sir.
Instagram. So do you guys have those you do live feeds where you're
Yes,
doing
sir.
pull-ups in the park on Saturday? You're by a plane, you're by a ship, you're jumping out of you're doing something crazy. Using those tools, is that something like, okay, now I have to learn how to operate, TikTok or Instagram? How does that work for you all? Anyone?
So for me, it's typically just like I already have my personal Instagram, so it's me just having a second account essentially, right? And really that's what it is. And so I'm able to go ahead and highlight what Air Force is doing, do some cool stuff, and be able to do that. And yes, be part, right next to the aircraft, and kind of show something where normally someone can't actually be a part of, or at least just not yet. And so this way it gives you a better idea of, based off what I'm telling you, now you can put the picture behind the words of what you're able to go ahead and do yourself based off something on my Instagram or the reels that I've been able to go ahead and put, or even just be part of the trend. And everyone can at least see that, all right, it's not just a military branch. We have some fun too. So
Right.
this way you can go ahead and see a part of that world.
I think one of you mentioned that before, that now it actually
Meet the
it kind of vets what you're telling them. They can go in there and search for, any branch, any job and say, yeah, this is kind of more of the day in the life of it. This is what it's like on the ship. It's not it's exactly what the recruiter said, or it's nothing like what the recruiter said. Hopefully that's not the case. And I think that the use of social media definitely could help the military. I told you all before we started, when I joined my recruitment, what I could watch was Full Metal Jacket. I know there's definitely something wrong with somebody that watching Full Metal Jacket and say, let me join the Marines. So I'm glad you're able to showcase other things. You mentioned the movies, I think. But you can show other stuff besides how we're just portrayed in some movie, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the movies is the movies, but in real life, we're still human, right? We still get to do the regular things that we do on a daily basis. Just because we put our uniform on, that doesn't mean we're different or any different from other people. It's just it's a matter of us going together and actually participating in things. And those social media definitely is gonna shed a light on what's going on in the military branch.
Yeah, like how he mentioned he has a separate recruiting account. Like, so me personally, I keep my personal account as my recruiting account. We also have a RSS Concord page, but like how they said, it sheds light on we're humans. My biggest thing on my Instagram is I'm true to who I am. So when they come and meet me, parents, the kids, or anyone, the faculty advisors at the high schools, they know, like, oh, this is who that guy is. He has his daughter, his wife, his dogs that he loves this much. And, like, also this is what he does in the Marine Corps. So, like, when I joined, how you said, sir, like, I joined and I had a great recruiter, but I honestly didn't really know what life would be like when you get into those military bases. Don't have to sneak out under the limelights and, like, go have fun. But in reality, it's not like that at all. You have your job. It's like a 9-to-5 job. You do your job, then you clock out. You have the weekends off, and then sometimes you do training during the weekends or certain weeks. You go on deployments, but it helps fight the misconceptions I heard this from this person, and it helps with that a lot. And meet the masses and show people, like, this is not just one person can do it. All you guys can do this.
Staff Sergeant, did you say 9 to 5?
Yes. Well, depends on what MOS you have, right? If you're going to be administration, probably going to have 9 to 5. My job specifically, not so much 9 to 5.
Okay.
Back in the day, the sort of image that I have of the recruiters is like, there's like a strip mall somewhere and all of the offices are kind of like in a row, right? And so I would imagine that there was some sort of friendly competition amongst the recruiters from the different branches, especially back in my day when you really do need folks to join the military. Sergeant Dahl was telling us earlier that it's different now. Are you guys still experiencing that sort of competition with the other branches to get this recruit?
I can honestly say just this morning I had someone go over to the Navy office because we couldn't work. Our business rules are different than theirs. So we couldn't work with what her situation was. And I have worked with everyone except for the Coast Guard because they're so far away and we are in the same strip mall. But we all work towards the individual. If I can't do what you're needing and I know Sergeant Nicholas can, well, guess what? I'm walking you over to Sergeant Nicholas and saying, hey, here's the situation. I know you have a program that works for that. Can you take care of this person? And there's competition because everybody has a job to do. But it's not, I'm trying to undercut anyone else. I'm trying to work side by side because we're all in the same industry.
Yeah, less competition, more collaboration is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Yes,
definitely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. The biggest thing is that we just want you to better yourself if you're coming in. It doesn't matter who you go to. All branches are great branches. It's really just what's going to benefit you at the end of the day. And so that's what we're all here for, is to help you out.
Petty Officer Torres, you're the newest recruiter here, right?
Yeah.
So you probably remember more than some of the others. What was it like? Your first, you had your first recruit say, "I'm going, send me, let's go." It was that like, okay, I did it. I can be a successful recruiter.
Absolutely. It's very exciting, and I think not selling the Coast Guard, not selling the mission, but selling like, hey, this is my experience. This is all the things I got from it. And if I can instill that same type of like excitement into you, as far as like, if you want to go to school, these are some options. If you want to buy a house, these are some options. I can instill the things that the Coast Guard can do for you, and seeing them excited about it, it definitely makes me feel very happy. Kind of just like what Sergeant Dahl said, I'm not trying to sell you on the Army or the Coast Guard. I want to tell you how we're different, how we can, maybe help you reach some of those goals. And if not, I definitely know a lot of the other branches will be able to help you as well.
I think there's more competition than these gentlemen are saying.
Absolutely.
But of course, it's friendly competition, and if you guys weren't competing, then maybe none of you would be succeeding. And I just made that up right now. So if you're not competing, you're not succeeding. So take that back to your recruiting station. Tell everyone. It's important that you all understand what each other's branch does, and then we all do, because they're all different, right?
I have a question. So I'd like to hear from as many people as possible. In a really short answer, 15, 20 seconds, is it rewarding to help young people find a positive path? And specifically, is there you don't have to say names, but is there a specific sort of situation or story or individual that really stood out to you that you knew, I'm really putting this person on a different path and changing their future?
Absolutely. Sorry to steal it real quick, but no, again, it goes back to everyone comes in for a reason, and if we're able to go ahead and get to their reason why and put them in and help them become successful in whatever sense that is for that person, it means a lot for us. And the biggest reward we get from that, and I can't narrow it down for one person, but I typically get a text from every recruit after they complete basic training saying, "I'm an airman. Thank you for helping me get there." Mm-hmm. And that is rewarding enough.
Yeah. And the next comment is, can I be on recruiter's assistant?
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. We know I want to stay home a little longer. That it's got to be an amazing feeling when they come back, 4, 8 years later, and they see you somewhere out in, the fleet or the squadron or on the ship. How does that feel when you see, this recruit is now an E5, and
it's so
wow, I never thought you would have made it this far, but I'm glad you did. That's got to be a cool feeling, kind of like seeing any of you have any experience with that?
I have a lot of experience on that. That's the whole big reason why I came back on recruiting. The most rewarding thing about recruiting is you're impacting not just that individual, but the community itself. You see these people, I've had kids ranging from kids that were homeless, and now they have a family. They have 2, 3 kids, and they're sustaining, they're having their own house, they're buying all this stuff. And I also have kids because we range from Martinez all the way up to Danville, San Ramon area, to kids who are making a lot of money from their families, but they earn that title and that pride in themselves and that self-reliance, self-direction, self-discipline. And you see them in the Fleet Marine Force, and you're just astounded. Their whole transformation to who they were to now is almost unrecognizable besides what they look like.
Recruits or potential recruits, they do not forget their recruiter. I bet you all could name your recruiters.
I
definitely could name mine. I told you guys the story before we started. He had gotten out, and I went to buy a car, and he sold me the car, and I thought, of course I'm going to buy a car from my recruiter, right? So he's a salesman. It's just an opportunity, I think, and I've seen your personalities come out throughout the show, and hopefully mine has a little bit too.
Yes, sir.
It's an amazing job that you guys do, and without you all doing the job that you do, the United States would not have the security that we have. We wouldn't have the veteran benefits because we would not have the veterans. So thank you all for joining the show today. That's our discussion for today. I want to thank all of our guests for sharing their stories. Thank you for watching Veterans Voices. We hope you have found our conversation educational. We leave you with a resource if you want to dig a little deeper. Learn more about all branches of the United States Armed Forces at Today's Military. Find them at todaysmilitary.com. Veterans Voices is brought to you in part by contributions from the Diablo Valley Veterans Foundation, dedicated to helping veterans near you. American Legion Post 246, honoring the tradition of American Legion in Danville. If you'd like to help sponsor Veterans Voices, you can donate to Veterans Voices, care of Diablo Valley Veterans Foundation. Get in touch with them at diabloveterans.org. To rewatch tonight's episode, check back on our homepage later this week, or check your cable provider's schedule for rebroadcast times. You can also rewatch this episode and many others on our YouTube channel, Veterans Voices of Contra Costa. So be sure to subscribe. Follow the link or scan our QR code to find us on all of our social media channels. Our next show will air on Wednesday, November 13th at noon. We'll be talking about the Port Chicago disaster in Contra Costa during World War II. You won't want to miss it. To all our veterans and family, thank you for serving. To all who have tuned in tonight, thanks for watching and have a great evening.